Good morning.
This morning, I am having a wonderful day of feeling hungry. Every program I watch, they have all these treats for Christmas. And everywhere I go, they have cookies and brownies and all sorts of goodies. So I don't know about you, but I am learning a lot of mastery and control so that I don't go hog wild and crazy over all the festive food. Now, why I'm bringing that up is because a lot of the time at this time of the year, we start seeing all of the signs, we hear the hymns and the songs about being happy. And the hardest thing I find is staying happy through the holidays. There's usually nostalgia, there's usually sentiment, there's usually memories, and there's usually expectation, perhaps, of what our life should have been, could have been, would have been if. So I'm here today to talk to you about happy. And happy is a wonderful word that if you hold it within yourself in an appropriate way, but a lot of people say, I just want to be happy. As a reader and an intuitive counselor and medium for 40-something years, one of the common things is people say to me, I just want to be happy. And so I will look to them and I'll say, what does that mean to you? What does happy mean to you? Does it mean that you have this or you have that thing or you feel a particular way? What is the word happy? Because it can be an adjective, it can be an adverb, depending upon how it's utilized. So happy, to me, is the H is for hope. Because most of us have a hope. We hope that the holidays will be great, but we hope even more than that our life will be fulfilled. We're very fortunate as spiritualists to understand the continuity of life, that life goes on after this plane of existence. But the hardest part is living in this existence is sometimes really tricky, and sometimes not always the way we assume, or sometimes the way that we are raised when we are young to expect it to be when we get older. I was watching, it's an old YouTube that was sent around years ago, and it's a wonderful woman, and I'm sorry I don't have her name correct, but she gave an invocation for a dinner. And I believe the dinner was at an assisted living facility called Home Instead. And she was delightful. And if you get to go on YouTube, just put Home Instead YouTube and funny invocation and you'll hear it. She gives a very lovely prayer as an invocation for the dinner. And then she stopped a moment, she paused, and she turned and she said, God, I forgot a couple of things. And so she added some of the things that for her were challenges and some of the things that at certain stages of our life that we go through where there's an expectation that it should be different and it's not. Most of us have hope, and the H is for hope. And the hope in spiritualism, for me, is the fact that working with intuition and working with psychic faculties and abilities and capability is that everyone is endowed with that capability and that awareness and that opportunity in their brain upon birth. It's how we discover it, how we utilize it, and how we allow it. And allowing it has a lot to do with fear. A lot of people have a lot of fear at this time. Fear for physical safety, fear for devastation, fear there's going to be another hurricane, fear and fear and fear. We hear constantly on the media, we hear words like horrific and terrible. We hear all of these words that bombard us to constantly agitate, to keep that adrenaline pumping, to keep us feeling like the world is just a little out of control, just seemingly. And yet we also know there are these kindnesses and these wonderful things that we observe at this time of the year. When people have a generosity that I hope extends to their whole 365 days, so that that generosity of their own heart and their own mind, and sometimes their own pocketbook, depending upon their capability, extends to the rest of humanity. So H is for hope. And hope to me has an awful lot to do with action. Action is hope. A lot of times we learn meditation, we learn how to go within, close our eyes, visualize something we want. But what happens is we sit with the visualization so long that we also develop the I can'ts, I won'ts, and all of those old conditionings, old programs that we have in our own mind and heart and experience come rattling on through, don't they? So what happens is we lose that little sense of hope. The A in happy means to me acceptance of what is. That's really hard. One hard thing that I had to accept years ago was the paralysis of my face. It didn't come because I chose to have it. It seemed to come because something in life felt a little out of control when I woke from surgery and it was changed. My life was different. All of you have gone through something in your lives that was taken from you or that you felt you, quote, lost or was changed because of circumstances, issues, or people where those things felt out of your control, and those things do occur. What we do have control over, though, is ourselves. And we control how we adjust, we control how we observe, we control what we accept. And the acceptance does not mean giving up. Acceptance doesn't mean quitting. Acceptance means accepting what is, and using that as a starting point in life rather than an end or a fatalistic statement about anything we face or anything that we're experiencing. One of the P's, and you can interchange these because both the P's mean to me in happy, passionate participation. If you have passion for something that you do, if you have passion for something that you feel within you, if there is a cause in life, if there is something that you love, if there is something that you don't know that you can do but you'd really like to try it, go for it. Because your passionate participation in anything has an awful lot to do with what manifests, what occurs, and what is the end result in your life and how you feel. Does it mean that every circumstance is going to be joyful? Not necessarily. But what it will mean is that you will take from any circumstance or any experience the most passionate participation place within yourself that you can. That was going to be a tongue tire there for just a minute. And it's to know that. The word happy has an awful lot to do with the why. And the why on the end of happy is about you. You, because you're here, because you're on this earth, and because you're a part of what makes this earth be what it is and what humanity is at this time. You have just as much importance as the next person. You have just as much significance as the most noted individual on the planet, and you can choose who it is. It could be Kim Kardashian, but I won't tell. and whoever it is that is most significant in your life, make sure that you come first within you. That does not mean selfish. A lot of times people have learned to step aside from themselves in their past. They have learned either when they were growing up or when from teachers or from parents or caregivers, from life circumstances, to step aside. One thing that occurs with intuition, with psychic faculties and abilities, and even with mediumship, is it's easy for us, and I say us collectively because I'm one of you is that we step aside from ourselves to unite on a pathway with another human being. When we're receiving information, we're collectively with them. We lose ourselves quite often. Do we lose our full identity? Not necessarily, and it goes singularly different from person to person, but it's the passionate participation. The you that is you that is you. Do you know you? Do you understand you enough, or are you waiting for other people to tell you who you are? Do you know you enough to be limiting the fears that you take on in life? The fear of not having money, the fear of not being in the right place, the fears of not having enough clients, the fears of not having enough, the fears. Are you paying attention to you? And are you paying attention to what you feel? I felt very drawn to participate here this morning. Some other times in other places, I have not felt as easy. When I don't feel the ease, sometimes it's because of a fear within me that whatever I'm going to say is not going to be good enough. I know none of you ever go through that, right? She said. But a lot of us learned not to be good enough, or that we didn't look good enough, or we didn't do something well enough. My mother would have corrected my grammar early on here. And you know, it's not about the fact of being good enough. You are enough right now, right here, right today, as you are. What you are doing is adding to self constantly. That's what being on this earth is. The soul of you wants to play, and the soul of you wants to create. And how it does that is in the direction that you look in life, not just with your conscious physical sight, but with your inner vision of hope and your inner vision of moving forward. If you are looking forward and you are saying, oh, I'm going to speak to these people, but I don't think I know what I'm going to talk about, and I'm worried that they aren't going to like it, that's going to take precedent over any kind of inspiration that can come through. That's what I recognize in the work that I do. I don't use notes. And if I do use notes, sometimes they're an inhibitor for me because I'm so busy trying to read it and remember that this is a really brilliant quote that I forget whatever I'm talking about. How many things do you do where you don't allow yourself to play? Do you know, you ready? This recipe that I'm about to give you, I don't know who it belongs to, and if there's a trademark on it, I don't know that either, so I'm just telling you up front. So I made some beer bread. Now, years ago, I made beer bread a whole bunch. I got real playful with it. I'd make little loaves, and we'd sell them at our gala days, and that was in the 80s, and before part of you all were born. But anyway, so I got the recipe to give to somebody, and I thought, oh, beer bread, I'm going to make beer bread. So here's the recipe, write it down, it's easy. It's 12 ounces of beer. Oh dear. 3 cups of self-rising flour. That's an important feature. Self-rising, you know, goes. Anyway, self-rising flour and a half a cup of sugar. Bake it 55 minutes at 350 and you're done. How easy is that? Well, I got creative. So years ago, I made it with cheese in it. And I told you I was into food today. And then one time I had a little can of fruit cocktail. I threw that in there. And the other day when I was making it for the first time in centuries, that I had a little container of blackberries in the refrigerator, and I knew that if they weren't eaten in another day or two, they were going to go bad. So I mashed them up, sort of. I tried anyway. They didn't mash really easily, but I did, and I put them in the batter, and I cooked it, and I threw in a little bit of cinnamon. Oh my gosh, it was so good. I thought I was going to gain 4 pounds just looking at it. So, it was a creative moment, but you know what was even more important is I had passionate participation because I accepted whatever I had, and I was hopeful that it was going to turn out, and if it didn't, I wasn't going to worry about it because nobody lives with me and had to suffer through it. What about you? So a woman yesterday that I was talking with has spent the last 8 to 10 years caring for a son who has cancer. She, in the middle of it, collapsed in the hospital and found out she had her own cancer. Well, she's better, And he's not doing very well after all these years, and so there's been struggle after struggle after struggle. Some of you know that also. And it doesn't matter that your situation in your life is different from hers. Hers is hers, yours is yours. Separate them out. Discern the difference. But what I am getting at is, she doesn't have a place in her life to just play or to just feel the ease of her own spirit. And so, guess what? She was in my house. I didn't have her make beer bread. But what I did was I showed her some paintings I had produced. Now, these paintings, I want to just tell you that I have spent some time in the last few years around some people who do fine artwork. Their work is in museums and all over the world. Mine, is not. So I decided I wanted to paint energy. I wanted to paint colors the way I feel them. So I just got these little linen panels at Michael's or Hobby Lobby or something. And I started painting colors just the way I felt them. And I would do it at night. It was my time. Was there any purpose in it? You bet. You know what the purpose was? It gave me hope. And it gave me hope, not that I was going to sell it, because that immediately puts an obligation on it. But what it gave me was a time period just to be with myself, doing something that passionately I could participate in, enjoy, and it didn't matter what it looked like to any other human being. Some of you would look at them and go, oh, that's nice, Diane. And some of you have actually taken them home, or at least I foisted them on you. And so my friend I brought in and I showed her, and I said, look, I said, go get some clay and just make something. Not for anybody, because a lot of us, when we were younger, learned that we had to be productive and we had to be doing for everybody else, or at least I did. If I was going to knit a sweater, it had to be for somebody. Or if I was going to make something, it had to be for somebody. What happens when you just do it because you want to do it because you do it? That's pretty wonderful. And you don't have a picture of the end result. Happy holidays is a hard time. A hard time because it can swing you from great joy and delicious things quickly into almost a despair or a feeling of obligation. And obligation takes away the playful spirit of you. This year, I haven't wanted to buy any presents. Now, that can be looked upon, again, as a selfish thing. But it has everything to do with the fact that I think I'm going to make some things. I don't know what they're going to be, and they may be seemingly silly things that people may go, oh, thank you. You know that? Okay. But they won't be things that they can throw in the closet and repurpose. They might be beer bread. So, the reason that I'm saying this to you is that happy comes because we accept. And we accept ourselves and how we feel. We accept what we're doing and we don't judge it. We accept the way we look, the way we act, how tall we are, how limited we are, if there is limitation in your life at all. It does not mean, again, I want to reiterate, it doesn't mean giving up. It means giving ourselves chance. A chance means infinite possibilities, and at every moment of our lives, we have infinite possibilities laid out in front of us. All we have to do is grab hold of them. But a lot of the time we don't grab hold because we are often in that fear state, or we're saying, I can't or I won't. Now, I'm here also to talk about lottery tickets. I know none of you buy them. I'm not going to blow your cover. But one of the traditional things that I hear all the time is somebody will say, let's go get a lottery ticket. And then in the next breath, in the same sentence practically, if it's not the same sentence, it's at least the next sentence, is that they will say, but I never win. Or there's the plea bargain thing that says, God, if you'll just give it to me, I'll give this all to charity. Yeah, right. So what I'm getting at is, that is a hopeful thought to go get one, and then it slams into our fear that I won't, I can't. So how many things in your life are you saying to yourself, I want this, or I would like to have this in my life, whether it's your fulfillment, whether it's romance, whether it doesn't matter to me, go for it. Because life is for living. And what happens is so often we slam into the very thought process of what we're wanting and what we're thinking about. And it reminds me of the little boy who goes into, you've heard this one, he goes into the barn and there's a whole bunch of on the floor. You know the on the floor? I'm not supposed to say poop, am I? Well, but the little boy goes in there and he looks around and he looks around and he doesn't see the on the floor. He looks around and he says, there's got to be a pony here somewhere. What are you looking at in your own life? What are you staring at? And are you seeing the full potential? And are you seeing the fact that you can be happy at any turn? The oxytocin that you just put into your brain in the last, what have I been here, 20 minutes? Have I been here 20 minutes talking? Okay. In the last 20 minutes, hopefully there has been one spark of levity that has gone through your body. And in that is the oxytocin in your brain. When you do that, you just have that one moment to shift not only your thought process, but the chemistry of the body, to relieve a little bit of that stress, to shift a little bit of the serotonin, dopamine. And the beauty of all of that is, happy during these holidays may come from all of the food you eat. You can come to my house. I have 3 sizes of clothes. I'll be happy to share. It also can be the fact that you are busy participating with you, doing whatever brings you joy. I often stay home on holidays. And you know why? Because it brings me joy, and because of the fact that it's not done out of going somewhere out of obligation or creating a turkey just to make sure it's moist. Because sometimes a hot dog at racetrack can be a very fulfilling thing, even for people that don't eat hot dogs very often. And the reason being is that it's part of what I call sneaking up on myself, so that there's a playfulness and a joy and that passionate participation no matter what. Personally, I have fewer years ahead of me than I do behind me. Some of you have lots of years ahead, and that's wonderful. And some of you may be in a position that's sort of on the edge of where I am, and it does not matter. What does matter is how we spend our moments, and what does matter is how we allow ourselves to understand happy. Does not have to mean that you walk around cheerful and smiley all the time. But what it does mean is that you'll have an opportunity to feel it in your heart, because you know that there's always more and there's always tomorrow. Thank you.